Ironically, it is also our side of the city, my side of the city where I work, Ward 7 and 8, that also have the highest vaccine hesitancy in the city, with only 36% of people in Ward 7 vaccinated and even less, 30% in Ward 8, Southeast DC, that are vaccinated. That means that the people in the wards that use the most EMS services in the city do not care if we're vaccinated. What they care about is if there's an ambulance there quickly to respond to the medical emergencies that their loved one may be going through, whether that is a medical emergency, a vehicle accident, a drug overdose, or sadly, as we see far too often, a victim of violent crime. Finally, we oppose this mandate because it is immoral. This vaccine mandate is perpetuating injustice at a global level, at an unprecedented level, at a global scale. The director of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, he said, and I quote, "It is not right that young adults in wealthy nations should be able to get the vaccine before older adults in poor nations." He went on to say, as he was pleading with the wealthiest nations to make the vaccine available to other nations, he went on to say, and again I quote, "There is no other word for it than the betrayal of trust, the consequences of which are now being played out in Africa, in lives lost that should not have been had the wealthiest nations allowed poor nations access to their fair share of the vaccine." And so we're seeing that this is perpetuating that. And our leaders here in DC, instead of respecting our choice, are trying to force this and squandering the opportunity to lead the way morally, recognizing the oneness of humanity and also the great needs that exist for vaccine distribution across the globe. We as frontline workers have responded for the past 18 months, trusting in the personal protective equipment that our city and the department has provided us, and we have done so safely and effectively. Now, however, that some of us may have vaccine hesitancy, there is no compassion, there is no understanding, there is no gratitude for what was just recently called heroic service. Instead, it is no jab, no job. This is immoral, and we strongly oppose this. I want to close just with a personal statement. I said in the beginning that I'm a third-generation Washingtonian. My great-grandfather was a well-known civil rights leader here in Washington, D.C. He, along with my great-uncle, were the first to sit in to desegregate schools here in Washington, D.C. My grandparents were doctors, met at Howard University. My wife was born here in the city. We bought our first house 5 minutes from a firehouse. My kids were born here. I got my master's in public administration from George Washington University. I have deep roots and a love for this city, but I'm speaking up against, and that is why I'm speaking up against this mandate, not just because I love my job and want to finish my career here in the department, but because I love this city. And I can say for my brothers and sisters that are gathered here behind me as well, that they care about our city, they care about the cities that they are serving in. That is why we are here today, not just to fight for our jobs, but to fight for the health and well-being of the cities that we love to serve in. Our question for our leaders is, why will you not allow us to continue to do so?
Well said.
Amen.
Well, I don't know if I can put it any better than Will just stated, but I'll just follow up with a personal statement. My name is Katie Fuertes. I've been on the fire department for 17 years. Third generation firefighter. My dad, his brothers, my grandfather was firefighter in DC. My dad's family grew up in DC. So my personal, statement about it would be, I'm a mother of four. Also my husband is employed DC Fire Department, so we both get fired. We're in a really bad spot. We have 4 kids, and I'm a cancer survivor. My youngest daughter had 2 open heart surgeries. When I look for medical advice, I go for my life experience. I look to my trusted doctors, and I go and I look to my faith. The things that I don't look towards are random doctors that don't know my background, know my family's background. I don't look to random scientists, politicians. I don't look to news personalities. Those are extremely important decisions that you don't just make lightly. And that's pretty much all I would have to say about that. And to the people that say that, the unvaccinated, they don't care about the public. We do care about the public. That's, why we do this job. We chose a job where we run towards danger, not away. And we care about the people in this city. So that's all I would say.
take it first?
Oh, you take it, you take
Here,
it.
I'll switch you.
Thank you, everybody. I'm Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis. I represent the communities of Staten Island and Brooklyn and New York City. And I could speak exactly, thank you. We got somebody from New York City. I could speak specifically to the impact that this is having currently on my city and the firefighters that I represent. And it's not just the firefighters. Right now, we know that thousands of firefighters, police officers, sanitation workers, and other municipal workers are being told that they are now on unpaid leave by Mayor de Blasio. And as a result, we have seen dozens of engine companies and ladder companies within our firehouses close temporarily, and it changes every single day. It was 26 the other day, it was 19 yesterday, and today we don't even know the number because it has increased drastically due to the fact that as of today, these firefighters were turned away from the job when they showed up this morning. This is an incredibly dangerous situation. I am concerned about the lag in response time, and God forbid someone is in a severe car accident, a 5-alarm fire, or there's a terrorist attack. We're not going to be prepared to respond quickly. And I'll tell this to Mayor de Blasio. If someone dies as a result of your incompetence and your misguided government overreach, I'm going to be holding you personally responsible, because this has been an utter failure in the last weeks of this mayor's administration. To think that firehouses, including one in my district, was shut down completely today, earlier. Completely shut down, the firehouse in Bath Beach and Bensonhurst in Brooklyn, because of this mayor's incompetence. And now we have to pray that something tragic does not happen. And on top of it, you should know that the firefighters that are there are being forced to work longer than a 24-hour shifts, which is against safety protocol. So not only now they have to be in violation of safety guidelines, which is now, I think, putting those firefighters at risk as well, and the entire community. So I stand here with these firefighters and first responders and my colleagues to say, enough is enough. Let's stop this nonsense. Give them back their option to at least test in New York City, and let's have a larger discussion about how we go about this in a safer manner. Because right now, this is just negligence, incompetence, and misguided, arbitrary regulations that are coming from a mayor that we can't wait to get rid of. Thank you.
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to thank all you brave frontline workers who showed up today. Really, your sacrifice to this country and to these cities around our country throughout this pandemic have been unimaginably difficult. To be able to go out and, especially in the beginning of the pandemic, we didn't really know what we were dealing with. But now, as time has gone on, as science has become more and more clear, as we realize now that many of you face more life-threatening danger going to your job day after day than you do from this virus. That we realize the negligence that is being done by politicians who want to have good sounding sound bites instead of people who want to actually work for the public benefit of the American people. When we have people that are willing to put on bulletproof vests and go out and stop criminals, people who are willing to run headlong into a burning building to save a child, people who are willing to put their life on the line in defense of others. But then we say, oh, well, you know what? If you're not going to take a vaccine for something that you have a 97% survivability rate anyways from, and that we're going to completely disregard anything notion of natural immunity, which gives you 8 times the immunity of this vaccine, and we're going to completely disregard the idea of just doing regular testing for this virus, we realize there is nothing scientific about this. This is about putting a boot on the neck of the American people, saying submit to our power because we've gotten drunk and hungry on it. And that is what has happened in Washington, D.C. And so to the people, men and women standing behind me, who have put your lives on the line, who have stood up in a time of turmoil, your children and the next generation are looking to you. And I promise you, they are not seeing someone who's going to sit down in a time of trouble and watch liberty be taken away and stripped away from this country. You are standing up at great personal risk to yourself, at great financial instability to your family, and I believe that your actions today and your actions in the coming weeks should be honored. I believe the American people will stand with you, and I believe these mandates will be reversed because they will be seen as asinine and completely unscientific by the American people. I'd like to thank everyone who came out today, and please, let's stand up for individual liberty and health freedom in America. Thank you very much.
I want to thank my colleague from North Carolina, Madison Cawthorn, for organizing this today. Will and Katie, I don't know if anybody here can say better than what you have said what is at stake. But I'm going to add a couple of descriptors, because I think Madison's right that it's negligent, it's asinine. I think Nicole is right that it reflects incompetence, but it's worse than that. It is authoritarian. That's the issue. There is a right relationship between people and government in this country. And some politicians have lost sight of what that is. And it doesn't matter, Will, whether we're Republicans or Democrats. At times we each get swept up in ideas that are wrong, but you're here for the right reason today. And that is that in this country, individuals have the right to decide, have the right to make their own decisions concerning critical health care issues. And in the situation that we confront, there are innumerable circumstances, as Katie's testimony suggested, as Will's statement indicated, that might lead people to a different and entirely rational conclusion. And it is the height of arrogance and authoritarianism for politicians like Mr. de Blasio in New York, or the President, Joe Biden, to deride, to denigrate, to ridicule, to sneer at concepts of fundamental freedom, to ridicule them so that they would bring them in disrepute among our peers. It's the wrong thing to do. And so I'm proud to be standing here with all of you. It matters not what our respective politics are. This issue transcends them.
Yes.
And it's my honor to be here again. Thank you, Madison Cawthorn, for setting it up.
Hey everybody, Ronnie Jackson. I'll be really brief because I know a lot of folks want to speak here, but as a physician here, I just thought I would say what a travesty this really is. This vaccine mandate, it's not about the science anymore, and it's not about public safety anymore. It's about control. We've seen that. And I'm speaking to you as a physician. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I had the vaccine myself. I encourage most of my family members to get the vaccine. But I would never tell anybody that the choice to get a vaccine should be made by a politician. It should be between you and your doctor. And everyone in this country should have the right to do that. Now let me just tell you, these people right here, these are the people that were out on the front lines from day one of this. These were the people that were putting their lives on the line when we didn't have a vaccine, right? And now we're gonna release these people and tell them they can't work anymore if they don't get the vaccine. We cannot be the land of the free if we're not willing to be the home of the brave. And these people behind me, they represent the brave people in this country that are standing up to this authoritarian approach. So I'll just tell you right now, we have to put a stop to this. There's going to be consequences across the board from this. It's not just going to be health care. You're going to call an ambulance because you're having chest pain or because you fall and you break your leg. No one's going to show up because they're going to be short-staffed. EMS is not going to respond. If you do get to the emergency department, you're going to wait really long time because there's not going to be the nursing staff that's necessary. If you happen to be from a rural community like I represent, you may not even have care anymore because there's not going to be nursing staff for rural hospitals. This is going to have a huge impact on our rural health care. And you know, it's not just going to affect health care. I represent the 13th Congressional District of Texas. We have, and I live in Amarillo, we have Pantex there. Pantex is a plant that makes nuclear weapons for this country. It's the only place in this country where we build nuclear weapons. They're about to release people from that place in particular. And who's going to replace these? These aren't just low-skilled jobs we're talking about. These are people behind us that have had lots of training. These are people like the people at Pantex that have high-level security and do jobs that they trained for years to do. When they're gone, who's going to replace these people? The cure cannot be worse than the disease. Amen. So thank you all for coming out today, and thank you guys for all being here, and thank you for standing strong.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Kat Kamak. I represent Florida's 3rd Congressional District, the Gator Nation.
And while I am a representative, I want to speak today as the wife of a first responder. My husband, Matt, is a 14-year veteran of Gainesville Fire Rescue. He is a firefighter, driver, operator, and a SWAT medic. And just recently, we were faced with this exact same mandate in small town Gainesville. Through the courageous actions of Governor Ron DeSantis and several dedicated lawyers and activists from our community, we were able to stop these unconstitutional mandates from terminating over 300 police, fire, and utility workers in the city of Gainesville.
Wow. Wow.
So, yeah. I don't think I could really say much more than what my colleagues have said here today. They have really eloquently outlined why this mandate transcends party politics. It transcends issues that divide us. When it comes down to it, the ability to make your own personal medical decisions, it is one between you, your family, and your doctor, and no politician, no bureaucrat in Washington or mayor can make that decision for you. So my message here today is really for the first responders and their families standing behind me, and to those that are watching at home. As someone who is part of the first responder family, and once you are either born into it, you marry into it, or it's a calling, and you all know what I'm talking about. And I don't know a single soul behind me, but in a lot of ways, I know you guys, because we have all walked this path together. The brotherhood, the firehouse, it's something that is part of your DNA once you are pulled into it. You mourn together, you celebrate together, you are each other's family. And the fact now that we have bureaucrats at every level that seek to divide and pull us apart because we choose to make personal medical decisions that are best for our families, it's reprehensible. And so the fact that I represent one of the most liberal cities in Florida, and we have seen victory in making these decisions for ourselves, defeating a mandate that is not only unconstitutional but unconscionable. I hope that that message brings hope to every single department, to every single first responder, to every single family member who is wondering if they have to make this choice in order to make a living. There is hope, and while these are small gains, there is light at the end of the tunnel, because in the end, good and truth will prevail. It's time that we start following the science, not the political science.
Wow.
Yep. Thank you, Madison, for leading. Thank you all for your service. I appreciate you all being here today. Thank you.
Oh, I'll be behind it. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and especially thank you to you all, and especially thank you to the children who are here. Because at the end of the day, they are the legacy that will live on. And the lessons that we teach our children today through means like this will live in infamy. Like our friend Will said, this isn't about politics, although some of us have made it about politics. I'm going to say something very unique here. I think we do need a vaccine. And the vaccine that we need is what's called the truth vaccine. Period. Because I think what the American people want from their politicians and the people that represent them is a little bit of truth, transparency, and consistency. And my God, I wish I could get a vaccine that I could give for people to just tell the truth. And if I seem a little angry, I am a little angry. And I'm going to share with you why I'm a little angry. Because you want to know why? These are the people that run to the problem. When you're in trouble, these are the people you call. Right? A year ago, these were the people that were taking care of everyone. And now, these were our heroes. Now, these people are villains. Well, I am sorry. Shame on you, and shame on anybody who thinks that. So let me get a couple things straight. And I want some answers. All I want is a little bit of truth. So how many people do we have crossing the border every day? Just out of curiosity. I'm assuming that since we care so much about this country, that the administration is mandating some vaccines from them. Hello, I hear crickets. I hear crickets. You want to know why? Because they're not. Because that's different. These are the people that respond. These are the people that care about us. And you know what? For once as Americans, we need to stand up and care about these people. Yeah. We need to come to their rescue in their moment of need. Let's start putting them first, their families first, and let's start putting Americans first.
Wow. Wow.
So with that, obviously, thank you for what you're doing. And I will share with you is I will fight with you, beside you, in front of you, behind you. Because what is happening to you is disgraceful and wrong.
Amen.
And last but not least, thank you for what you do.
For the last 7 years of my dad's life, he was blind and he was in a wheelchair. And he was a happy guy, believe it or not. But if it weren't for the first responders in my region coming to him every time we had an emergency because we couldn't handle them ourselves, we were so grateful. And it's why I'm a huge supporter of all of our first responders. And again, as I echo what my colleagues have said, you know, you were heroes last year, now you're villains today. But the Health Freedom for All Act actually deals with a couple of issues. Number one, we have a problem, I think, with OSHA. This is a labor law enforcement.
Yes.
I don't think the president can actually enforce laws through OSHA. It has to come through Congress. So I've put a bill in. Madison and many of the people standing behind me are co-sponsors of this bill. And the bill basically states that the president doesn't have the right to do this to our first responders via executive fiat. It has to go through the regulatory process through legislation. Another issue I just want to point out, and obviously I don't want to take too much time, but I have an employer also. Thankfully, we have under 100 employees. That means we don't have to comply with the vaccine mandate, but the guy down the street who has 101 does have to comply. That's clearly an equal protection issue, and that's a problem as well. And I just wanted to say thank you again to all of you for being here, for supporting our legislation, and hoping that we get, if you can urge some of your colleagues to get more Democrats on this bill. I think it makes sense. It's not a partisan bill. It has to do with legislation and how we run a government. And so with that, I just want to say thanks again to Madison for just jumping on board this bill right away, and so many of my colleagues. This is really important that we protect our first responders. We have a crisis in my region as well. As Representative Ronnie Jackson pointed out, we have a lot of healthcare workers that are not able to work. They aren't able to take the vaccine, and they're ending their careers. Many giving up on pensions, many giving up on long-time retirements because they cannot go because their doctor has advised them not to take the vaccine. So I took the vaccine. Like Dr. Jackson, it can be very helpful and effective to many people, but it should be a right, not a mandate. And so I stand with my colleagues today and urge everyone to get on this bill, get it through Congress, stop the mandates, whether on the national level or the level with either governors. Of course, we have a governor that's mandating vaccines as well. She's even wearing a necklace that says vaxxed on it. So that tells you what she stands for. But this is a real issue, and I thank everyone for being here, for what you do, for putting your lives on the line, for keeping us safe. You know, a lot of the people that you rescue and save are people that are most vulnerable in our communities. And we thank you for doing that. A lot of seniors, a lot of people with special needs, a lot of people with injuries. And so we're grateful to you. And thank you again, and thanks to all my colleagues for co-sponsoring.
Thank you. I'm Andrew Clyde of Georgia's 9th Congressional District, and I want to thank each of you who are here today. Will and Katie, what powerful words you guys had. Representative Cawthorn, thank you for leading this opportunity to highlight this critical issue. President Biden's unconstitutional COVID-19 vaccine mandate has set the stage to pull the rug out from our first responders, from those standing right behind me. This is extremely dangerous and shows a lack of leadership. Police officers, firefighters, paramedics, EMTs, these are the men and women who keep our communities safe each and every day. The federal government has overstepped its bounds. It must not dictate whether first responders get the COVID-19 vaccine and should not leverage their benefits, their pensions, their livelihood against them. The decision to get vaccinated is a privileged one that should be determined solely by an individual or in consultation with their doctor if they choose, not by the federal government. And I say privileged because we live in the land of the free. where people are privileged to make their own choices about their health care and their family's health care. Yet we have a president that doesn't believe in this fundamental freedom. During his recent town hall, President Biden said he supported firing police officers and emergency responders who refused to take the COVID-19 vaccine. He then scoffed at Americans who believe the vaccine mandates infringe on their freedoms. Well, Mr. President, millions of men and women have fought and died for our freedoms. Instead of mocking our precious liberties, how about protecting them? It's your job, Mr. President. But that's not President Biden's agenda. No, the vaccine mandate is nothing more than a Romulan cloaking device to mask the real motive of defunding the police. That's the real agenda here. Get rid of the local police, and now you're adding all first responders to that agenda and doing it in the false name of simulated safety. Defunding the police has evolved into defunding first responders, force a vaccine mandate, and thin the ranks of the police and firefighters. The big government Socialist Party has been trying to do this for almost 2 years, and now is their fail-proof plan. Think of the impact firing first responders across the nation will have on our communities. Crime will continue to surge as criminals become emboldened. Retail stores will continue to get robbed by shoplifters who face no consequences. Looting and riots will go unchecked because the manpower to stop it isn't there. 911 calls will be delayed. You could get a busy signal, or maybe not answered at all. Our national security is already at risk under Joe Biden's open border policies, and crime is surging in most urban areas, thinning the ranks of our men and women in uniform who answer the calls for help is not in the interest of American citizens. It will make all of us face more dangerous conditions in our communities. Defunding the police by cutting their budgets or defunding first responders by an unconstitutional vaccine mandate, the effect is the same. Americans are less safe under Biden's blatant big government socialist power grab. Our economy continues to suffer under the Biden administration. We should encourage folks to get back to work, not force Americans out of a job. I'm proud to stand with my conservative colleagues and these brave first responders and their families in fighting back against the Biden administration's medical tyranny. We will not accept defunding the police or decimating the ranks of first responders. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Jonathan Alexander, Senior Counsel for Governmental Affairs for Liberty Counsel. And I represent the national constitutional law firm that is bringing the fight against these unconstitutional mandates in the court. You know, it's a shocking and a sad occurrence that our natural, inalienable rights are considered to be a dispensation or an indulgence from government, something that they can give and take away based on their whims or based on a vaccination status. Freedom has never been so fragile, so close to slipping from our grasp than as it is at this moment. But it is in this very moment, despite ourselves finding us in this place, despite the odds being stacked against us, it's in this very place that these heroes take a stand. The ones that you are meeting here today, champions of all that is well ordered and decent and defendable in society, men and women just like you, rising up, hearing the call, pushing back against these unconstitutional mandates, taking a stand for freedom against these forced vaccines. That's what's happening today. Liberty Counsel has been grateful to be able to stand in the gap, fighting for service members who have stories similar to the ones that you've heard today, fighting for all of you in your respective disciplines, in your different fields of employ, fighting so that you do not have to take the jab in order to keep your job. You know, we've been engaged on this issue, this COVID-19 issue, from its outset. For the past 21 months, we saw exactly what it was from the start. And we pushed back in the courts against all of its civil rights violations. First pushing back against the lockdowns, then pushing back and winning on behalf of the churches at the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And now we've sued Biden.
Wow.
We've
Wow.
sued Biden.
Yeah. Wow.
For the military and service members, we've sued Biden. On behalf of federal employees and civilian contractors, we've sued Biden. Like the stories that you've heard today, we look squarely in the face of the mandate and say, make me. But those aren't just hollow words.
Yes.
We've put those very words into action, and we're putting up a fight in the courts. It's a fight that echoes the feelings of the millions of Americans that said, we have had enough. And boy, haven't we had enough. Folks who are here steadfast in their religious convictions against this mandate. That's what moves us to do the work that we do. And I'll leave from this podium and go back to my desk. The folks at our law firm are receiving voicemails and pouring through tens of thousands of emails of individuals just like you that have had enough, that are pushing back against this. We hear their exasperated and their desperate voices, and that's what motivates us. But we're also motivated by the courageous voices, those people that will not let up. So do not let up in this fight. Persevere and persist through this fight. Know that you are on the right side of history. Know that your rights will ultimately be vindicated. America has always had a generation, when given the choice between tyranny and liberty, has loudly and resolutely chosen liberty. These folks have chosen liberty. And when it comes to a fight like this, we will win. We will win. We will win so that henceforth no other governor, no other employer, no other university can force you to violate your conscience. We will win so that no other individual, regardless of his temporary address at the White House, can ignore your fundamental freedoms. We will win and put an end to this mandate that seeks to trample on American rights and pit livelihood against liberty.
Wow.
And despite the threat to our livelihoods, and we know that it's a real threat, and that's what they're trying to do, create a fear in us, saying that we're going to pit you against your livelihood, scare you into thinking that you won't be able to provide for your family. But I know something different. I know that the number of times in history where Providence has stepped in and pre-written an end to the benefit of God's children is 100 times more likely than the times that God has left his child to fend for themselves. Scripture says it this way. Scripture says, I once was young, but now I'm old, but I have never seen the righteous forsaken, nor their children begging for bread. Armed with the strength of the law, armed with the resolve of generations that have fought to preserve the very freedoms that are at stake today, and armed with the faith from heaven itself, we will make sure that this tyranny ends. We will put an end to this mandate. So hear me clearly. We've sued Biden. We will win. And so to him and other similarly disposed persons, we'll see you in court.
That's right.
Woo! Well, everybody, I'd like to thank you all so much for coming out. Let's give a big round of applause for our first responders. You guys are amazing. Really appreciate y'all. We got time for one or two questions. If anybody has any? Sir.
Sure. There's another side of this. Like, have you spoken to the families of Don Ramey or Carl Proper in your district? And what do you tell to people who have first responders who they've lost to COVID?
Well, I've not spoken to either of those families, but I will tell you, any death is a tragedy, especially when it's someone who's wanting to put their lives on the line for our benefits. But so many Americans through the last 240 plus years of our existence have died for freedom and for liberty in this country. And I think it is shame to take liberty and deprive liberty away from the American people because we are afraid for our lives, we are afraid for our safety. I believe our founding fathers are absolutely correct when they said if you give up liberty for a little bit of temporary safety, then you deserve neither. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I think the Liberty Council case just lost in the Supreme Court a couple days ago, right? Is that some way to fight back on that? Or?
Jonathan, maybe you could speak to that.
There are several cases making their way up. It was a temporary setback that we faced in Maine, but the Biden lawsuit that we have against Biden's Department of Defense and the Department of Homeland Security, they're the ones pushing this against federal employees and civilian contractors. That's still on its way up.
So that didn't set precedent?
It didn't.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, everybody, thank you all very much. Hope you guys have a great day. Thank you. Thank you so much.